reasons why we, as a species, have chosen the way of the sloth. First, it's comfortable. And second, we have spent most of the past century inventing technologies that make movement unnecessary. Unlike almost all of the other creatures on the planet, we are now in a position where we barely need to shift our bodies to find food, stay entertained, or even find mates. Most of it can be done sitting down and occasionally moving our thumbs. Yet while we stiffly pat ourselves on the back for having the brains to make this happen, we are missing something important. The brain evolved not for us to think, but to allow us to move, away from danger and towards rewards. Everything else, from our senses to our memories, emotions, and ability to plan ahead, was bolted on later to make these movements better informed. Moving is at the heart of the way we think and feel. If we stay still, our cognitive and emotional abilities become seriously compromised. Sure enough, as we make ourselves comfortable, the cracks in our collective psyche are beginning to show. Our increasingly sedentary lifestyles have been linked to falling IQs, a vacuum in new creative ideas, a rise in antisocial behavior, and an epidemic of mental illness that is affecting people of all ages and from all walks of life. Studies suggest that both self-esteem and pro-social behavior tend to be lower among people who spend more time sitting, and that sedentary time is linked to a greater risk of anxiety and depression. Although it isn't clear which comes first, the sitting or the depression, physical activity is well known to be helpful in relieving symptoms of both conditions, so it stands to reason that a sedentary lifestyle is not ideal for anyone at risk of, or already dealing with, mental health issues. Cognitive skills, too, take a hit when we sit. Being sedentary for long periods is the enemy of focused attention, memory, and planning ability, and puts an unnecessary lid on our creativity. A recent study of young Finnish schoolchildren found a significant relationship between the amount of time spent sitting and achievement in standardized maths and English tests over the course of 2 years, particularly among boys. The rot sets in at an early age, and if we do nothing about it, sitting still becomes a lifelong habit. It also makes us old before our time. In studies, middle-aged people who spent more than 2 or 3 hours per day sitting in the car or in front of the TV were found to lose their mental sharpness significantly faster than those who were more active. We also know that regular exercise can reduce the lifetime risk of dementia by 28%. By one recent estimate, as many as 13% of Alzheimer's cases worldwide can be traced back to a sedentary lifestyle. By another, reducing sitting time by a quarter could prevent more than 1 million new diagnoses worldwide. It doesn't matter how you cut the numbers, the message is the same. Move more, and your brain will thank you in the long run. Given our collective propensity for lolling around, it is perhaps more alarming than surprising that our sedentary ways may be affecting IQ at a population level, making humankind as a whole just a little bit less smart. IQ scores had, until recently, been rising by an average of 3 points per decade, for as long as people had been taking IQ tests and in countries all over the world. The trend is named the Flynn effect, after the New Zealand-based psychologist James Flynn, who first documented it back in the 1980s. Soon afterwards, however, from the mid-1990s onwards, the Flynn effect started to slow down, and by the early 2000s the trend was running in reverse, at the rate of a few points per decade. Some observers explain this with the controversial claim that less intelligent people tend to have more children, which over time could have diluted national averages. Others suggested that an increase in global migration was to blame, because incoming foreigners didn't quite understand the questions. A recent study from Norway, though, shows quite clearly that neither of these, let's be honest, offensive explanations holds water. By tracking IQ scores of young men from the same family over several decades, researchers found that IQ scores were declining within families across different generations. This means that it can't be down to changes in genetic fitness. Evolution doesn't work that fast, and certainly not for complex traits such as intelligence, where variation is explained not by one gene but many. It is much more likely that the changes can be explained by changes in the environment, or, perhaps, by the way we choose to use it. A lack of movement isn't the only change in our lifestyles in recent years, but there is no doubt that the descent to seatedness is an important social change that has been creeping up on us for some time, and not only in the pampered West. A study from 2012 compared the amount of physical activity involved in work, leisure, home life, and travel in the US, UK,